turn your head as you look me in the eyes, my girl.
Please take your seats. The opening plenary will begin in 1 minute.
Sink your wild tiger teeth in my neck, till the blood flows. Life's a long ass journey with some fool that broke the map. Everyone's digging for the cross on the page. No one knows where it's at. 'Cause I love the way you move, love what you do, everything.
Welcome to the opening plenary of the 38th Annual International LGBTQ Leaders Conference. Thank you to our presenting sponsors, Amazon, Coca-Cola, Comcast, NBC, Universal, Meta, and Toyota. Now, please welcome to the stage Majority Leader of the Colorado Senate, Dominick Moreno, and Denver's next mayor, Colorado State Representative Leslie Herod.
Well, good evening, everyone. How y'all doing? Welcome. I love you, Carlos. Welcome to the 38th Annual International LGBTQ Leaders Conference. Welcome. How many of you guys, it's your first time? First timers? How many of you all are newly elected? Awesome. Congratulations. The rainbow wave just keeps on giving, doesn't it? And the best thing about LGBTQ leaders is I always say we are the best looking leaders in the bunch. Isn't that right? It's so important that we're here today in a room full of elected officials, advocates, organization leaders, and so many others in our communities that are fighting for us every single day. So thank you all for every single thing that you're doing. We appreciate you. As someone who's been at the Victory Conference for probably 15 years or so, it is amazing to see so many people at this opening session. In the past, we've only had a room full of maybe 5 or 6 of these tables, and now we're chock full of elected officials across the country and, quite frankly, across the globe. So again, kudos to all of you all.
We thought it would be fitting to start our proceedings today with a land acknowledgement. So Washington, D.C. sits on the ancestral lands of the Nacotchtank or Anacostans and neighbors and ancestral lands of the Piscataway and the Pamunkey peoples. We are so excited to bring you greetings from Colorado, one of the best states in the country for skiing, LGBTQ rights, and of course, cannabis. We have moved a long way in Colorado. At one point, if any of you remember, we were known as the hate state because our voters passed a constitutional amendment that said no unit of government in Colorado could pass non-discrimination laws, making discrimination completely fair game. Since that time, though, Colorado has evolved. We now have 12 members of the LGBTQ Legislative Caucus, or 12% overall of the entire state legislature. In Colorado, you can get a new birth certificate that actually reflects your gender identity. And on your official documents, there is a non-binary option as well. We have moved so far in advancing LGBTQ rights. But that didn't stop a gunman from taking 5 members of our family just a couple of weeks ago. Let us say their names and remember them. Leslie?
Daniel Aston.
Ashley Pa.
Derek Rump.
Kelly Loving.
Raymond Green Vance.
Let us sit with a moment of silence to remember the victims of the Club Q shooting. Thank you. Obviously, we have a big job in the next legislative session. Colorado has and continues to be a leader in LGBTQ rights, but now we need to turn our focus to the hate, the violence, the misinformation that we're seeing in our world today. That's what Leslie and I plan to concentrate on in the next legislative session that begins in January. So we are very excited to do this work alongside all of you across this country to acknowledge the gains that our community has made, and in that light, to introduce...
Me.
Introduce Leslie, always.
Well, as Senator Moreno, my good friend Dominick mentioned, Colorado has made many strides. But as someone who grew up in Colorado Springs, someone who frequented Club Q, especially during these times, during the holidays, the tragedy that happened really struck home and struck so very deep. As I went down to the Club Q community and family immediately after the massacre, I had conversations with the survivors. And the number one things that the survivors wanted me to tell you today is that Colorado Springs is not a place of hate. Colorado Springs is a place of love. And as someone who grew up there and came out there and did drag at Club Q, I was an amazing drag king, by the way. First Denver's mayor, drag queen mayor will be happening, absolutely. Drag king mayor, excuse me. Colorado Springs is a place of love. The Club Q community needs to be supported and embraced right now because their home, their place of solace, right? The place that you go to during the holidays when you've just spent too much time with your family and you just want to let your hair down is gone. And when it is time to rebuild, they need to know that we will rebuild with them if that's what they choose to do. And so as we think about our role as LGBTQ elected leaders, I think we have to remember so many victims and survivors of hate that happens throughout our country and throughout the world. And I want to acknowledge so many of the LGBTQ international leaders who are here today. I don't know how you do your work in the face of such violence, but I want to applaud you too for all the work that you're doing. As leaders, it is now incumbent upon us to not only grieve with those who are mourning, not only stand with survivors and victims of LGBTQ hate, but to make change so that this doesn't happen again. And it is very clear what happened at Club Q was an act of hate. It was an act of terror. And we have to call it that every single time we talk about it. But we know that even though we have the LGBTQ gains that we have, including a gay governor, right? That we also have people in Colorado, like Lauren Boebert, in our Congress, that continues to espouse hate, especially against trans people, and especially against very dangerous things like drag queen reading hours. This hate is insidious in social media, but it also gets into the hearts and minds of those who are impressionable. And for those of us who thought that we were going to age our way out of homophobia and transphobia and racism, this is another wake-up call yet again that we have much work to do. And so we ask of you, as representatives of Colorado, that you will speak up, that you will continue to speak out against hate, that you will continue to stand proud and out as who you are, because that's so very important, but that we don't let a tragedy like Club Q allow folks to put rainbow flags on their windows and their doors and not do anything to protect LGBTQ people. And then our commitment must be to pass legislation and ordinances and policies that do just that make hate against LGBTQ people a true hate crime, that protects our transgender youth in their schools and in their communities and their families. And that if Colorado is a safe haven, I need you to make sure that your state doesn't prosecute someone for coming to our state to find refuge. Absolutely. And then additionally, and I don't care what party you are with, we have to address gun violence in our communities. We must. Gun violence has taken the lives of far too many, and time after time again, we know there were policies that could have been placed on the books that would have helped, that would have stopped that from happening, or like in Colorado, would have kept someone from being able to have access to a weapon in the first place. We have to stand by those policies. We have to stand up, because what does it matter if we're elected if we don't do anything about it, right? And so today, at this conference and throughout the next few days, I want us to celebrate the rainbow wave of the next generation and leaders in our communities and stand with them and together as we make sure that we are passing laws and policies that have a real impact on the lives of LGBTQ people. So I'm really, really excited to be with you this week, to hear from this opening panel of first years, if you will, newly electeds who are there to do just that. And in the face of a very terrible election cycle, they won. They won. And the exciting thing about it is our win rate is better than almost any other organization in the country. Because when LGBTQ people run, we win. We win, we win, we win.
So to celebrate that rainbow wave, it's my honor to introduce New Hampshire Representative-elect James Roesener, who became the first out trans man ever elected to a state legislature when he won election.
Ooh, it is bright up here. Hello, how is everyone doing today? I hope so. So, I am James Roesener. I was recently elected as state representative in New Hampshire. And again, as they said, I am the first out transgender man to be elected to state legislator. So my decision to run for representative was sort of on a whim, to be honest, though I knew I had always had aspirations to run for some local office and affect change in that way. The perfect day where I felt fully ready and capable never came. It was through a local coalition network that I found out that the amazing incumbent that was representing my district at the moment, who is actually another amazing record holder. She was the first refugee to be representing in the state legislature. But she decided she was not going to run again because it's a pretty taxing position. The New Hampshire legislature is, specifically the House of Representatives, is a very unique in the sense that there are 400 seats, which is the highest number in the nation. It is also very unique in its salary, which pays us $100 a year for our representation before tax. So it's not unheard of to have vacant seats and see people running unopposed. And we had somebody that I strongly disagreed with who was running, so I sort of jumped in. But the reality of the way that we run the House creates barriers for diversity when it comes to people who represent. Like, we have majority 70, 80-year-olds who are retired, and that's a very clear reason as to why. And it's something that I definitely had to think about as a 26-year-old person. I live independently from any familial support whatsoever. My wife and I sustain a living by working fairly demanding retail jobs. And so it was kind of a toss-up as to whether or not I'd be able to. Fortunately, I do live right around the bend. I'm literally 5 minutes away from the State House, so I could walk there. And also, I work for an amazing local business who is giving me the flexibility to not only run a campaign and win, but to serve. As a transgender person, it was important to me to run for local office because many of the bills passed nationally as well as locally, both those that were passed and defeated, demonstrated the immense power that local politics levy against queer and trans lives, as well as the lives of all oppressed people. We here know that LGBTQ people are no different or lesser than anybody else, and that our goals and needs are not too different than the rest of the world. We want a safe home, an affordable education, food on our table, a job that pays us. I am inspired to push for a life of dignity and equality that we deserve. Unfortunately, we're not there yet. I'm inspired by Angela Davis to pursue freedom not as a destination we will one day get to. Instead, to me, the pursuit for liberation for myself and for all of us is a process, a way of living. I definitely intend to see my goals to fruition, but I don't ever think I'll see the day where I get to put the tools down and say that the work is done. As a representative-elect, I will be the first transgender man to serve in legislature. I will also hold the most powerful seat a trans man has openly served on. I am humbled by the messages from everybody, especially the trans community, who have been inspired by my presence here, who feel recognized, affirmed, and worthy. And to those who have said that my win has sparked them to actually run, I look forward to your victories, because together we can push for protections for our communities, making sure trans kids get the care that they need and the representation that they deserve, and making sure our homes can be safe for all of us. And I am grateful for the Victory Fund and Victory Institute for helping making these victories possible. And I'm grateful for you for being here, because even if you're not an elected official, this is all part of the work. And I think that we all need to give ourselves the credit for doing what we need to do. Thank you.
George, I want to thank you for that wonderful introduction. I am so grateful to you. I'm also very proud of you. I know that you're an intern on the Hill with Nancy Pelosi, and I have...
All right. Thank you so much for that message of diversity and representation. I think to understand where we are today, we have to understand where we came from. In 1776, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin proposed a promise for the Great Seal of the United States of America. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. From the birth of our nation, we have struggled to fulfill this revolutionary promise of representation. When this promise was made, human beings were in chains, women were forgotten, and our community was non-existent. However, the beauty of the American experiment is that while the moral arc of this country is long, it bends towards justice. Our ancestors never stopped searching for that promise to be fairly seen and heard in our country. They fought relentlessly on the right side of history to correct the wrongs of our past. And they weathered the darkest of storms so the future could see the light of liberty. My story is proof of this dedication to democracy. For the past few months, I have interned in the Office of Leadership for our country, an opportunity unknown both to my parents who grew up deep in poverty and my grandparents who grew up deep in the South. But for the first time in all of history, someone like me can stand in front of you and say that the promise of representation is finally being fulfilled in our country. From my cohort's time as Victory Congressional interns to the election of more LGBTQ+ representatives into office, I have seen a wave of representation for our community. Over the past 5 years, the amount of LGBTQ+ people in office has doubled, and after the midterm elections, 22 states have more LGBTQ representation than they did a year ago. From those elected within our community to the allied leaders who work with them, you continue to represent us with power, honor, and pride. Your acknowledgement of our existence and affirmation of who we are proves the strength of your integrity. Your dedication to give aid and assistance inspires others to follow in your footsteps. But most of all, your commitment to serve the American people makes your ancestors who dreamed it into reality proud. Today, I would like to introduce one of these leaders who symbolize the righteousness of democracy, Ms. Jan Schakowsky, who has represented Illinois' 9th District in Congress since 1998. And in her time, she has remained at the forefront of healthcare issues, women's rights issues, and LGBTQ+ issues. I am also extremely proud and thankful to say that she won in her past midterm election. Starting next year, she will be serving the 9th District in Congress for her 13th term, and as she continues to represent and as representation for our community grows, we will continue to fulfill the promise of our American ancestors, the promise known as e pluribus unum, out of many, one. Thank you, and please give a warm welcome to Representative Schakowsky.
George, I want to thank you for that wonderful introduction. I am so grateful to you. I'm also very proud of you. I know that you're an intern on the Hill with Nancy Pelosi, and I have read your blog, Out on the Hill. I think you have a great future ahead of you. To everyone, I'm Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, and you know, I have been a long-time ally, and so this award is so meaningful to me. I appreciate it so much. Among other things, I was one of the founders of the Equality Caucus, and I've always been there when we are fighting for justice and equality. But over the last several years, it's really become personal to me. I want you to know that. I am the proud grandmother of a trans grandson. He's great. He's one of my 4 grandchildren that are all queer. Yep, we're the queer family. Stevie is non-binary, Will is gay, and Lucy, who I actually thought was straight for a while, is now madly in love with her girlfriend, Lucy, for more than a year now. And I'm proud of them. They're happy, they're secure. Of course, that's not true for all people around the country, and we have a lot of work to do, but we've made good progress. I am so excited about the additional members of Congress. Erick from Illinois is the first gay representative from the state of Illinois. So happy to have him. When I first got here, there were only 3 members who were gay. Barney Frank being the one that really stands out in my mind. And now there are 13, not enough. And maybe there's more who aren't out yet. But we also know that every single state in the union has had now candidates who have run for office, and the District of Columbia. And there are over 400 now who are serving in office. And it's really, I think, the beginning of just a fast-growing trend, and it is. The LGBTQ+ community is one of the fastest growing in terms of participation in elections, in being out. And so that is all very, very exciting. So I am just so happy to continue my advocacy, to continue being an ally of all of yours, to be at your service when you need someone to stand up. But we have so much more work to do. We saw that horrible mass shooting targeting the LGBTQ community. You know, there are still many people who live in fear and in danger. We need to always be there to protect them. But I also want to, as a final word, say this. I really do think that the culture wars in many ways are over, and they lost, and you won, and we won. Because we know that over 70% of Americans believe that that marriage equality should be the law of the land. They are fighting against what most Americans believe on so many fronts when it comes to your community, to my family's community. And so we just need to continue to translate that into legislation, into work at every level of government, elect people, and the more that happens, the better off everyone is going to be. So thank you so much for this tremendous honor.
Thank you to our Victory Congressional intern, George Rogers, for the kind introduction of Representative Jan Schakowsky. Congratulations, Representative Schakowsky, on being awarded the Congressional Ally Award. Now, please welcome to the stage our moderator, Pennsylvania State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, for our panel. A rainbow wave in 2022.
We're doing it.
In state legislatures.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Victory Fund. So I'm really, really excited to be here. I'm going to be very, very brief because I want to get to this incredible panel that we have. I just want to start and take a point of personal privilege and just say thank you to so many people in this room. When I ran last year and was the first openly gay man of color to ever run for the U.S. Senate in American history, a lot of folks in this room had my back. We punched above our weight. We did incredibly well. And I'm really excited that Pennsylvania, we went from just one openly LGBTQ member, my good friend Brian Sims, who was by himself for many years. And then I come along. And then Representative Benham comes along, and now we're excited to say Pennsylvania is going to have 5 openly LGBTQ members of the General Assembly. 5. And there are a lot of other states which are also celebrating some incredible, historic, monumentous victories in their states as well. We're going to get to talk to 4 such leaders, hear about what's going on in their states, including one of my future colleagues who will not bring me a hat to save her life. He won't bring me one. You'll see in a second what I'm talking about. But we're excited. Panelists, come on up. Let's get to it. See the hat now, what I was mentioning. Hello. So you're good? Okay, so let's get right into it. So what I want to do, we're going to start with you, Rep-elect Mays, is to first introduce yourself and very icebreaker-esque. Tell us something about you that we would not expect. Something cool, something fun. I want a fun factoid. Tell us about you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Latasha D. Mays, I use she, her pronouns. I will be the first openly lesbian state legislator in the entire Pennsylvania General Assembly. And I'm so proud to serve with my brother, Rep. Malcolm Kenyatta, and I mean, it's just incredible to be here on the stage with you, and thank you for everything you did, continue to do for LGBTQ legislators like myself, but also for the major victory that we had in Pennsylvania this past midterm. So thank you so much. Y'all can clap for that. Y'all been serious in here this afternoon. I know we have serious work to do, but something you should know about me is actually I'm a DJ. I go by DJ Dark and Stormy. So all my spare time, you can catch me DJing. So that's a fun fact about me.
Oh, I love that. I'm happy to ask this question. So Senator-elect Fredrickson, we're going down to you, all the way from Nebraska.
All the way from Nebraska.
Nebraska, yes. So introduce yourself, tell us something fun.
I'm Jan Fredrickson. I use he, him pronouns. I am a state senator-elect from the great state of Nebraska. Honored to be here. Thank you for moderating the panel, Malcolm, and to be with all of you. My fun fact, I don't know if this is a fun fact or if it's kind of cringeworthy, but this is my favorite time of the year, and I absolutely adore Hallmark Christmas movies, which is so cringeworthy. So my favorite part of being in the hotel, after the day's events, after dinner, after some drinks, you'll find me in my plush bed watching the Hallmark Channel. So that's my cringeworthy fun fact.
Okay. To my right, Rep-elect Zephyr.
Hello, my name is Zooey Zephyr, she, her. I'm representative-elect for the 100th House District in Montana, and I'm the first trans woman elected to public office in the state of Montana. And two quick fun facts. In my spare time, I am the Lindy Hop instructor in my town, teaching vintage swing dancing.
Oh my God.
And I published a medical children's book when I was 20. You'll never find it, it's under my dead name.
And finally, but certainly not least, Representative-elect Montaño.
Oh, hi, thank you. My name is Sam Montaño. I use she, her, they, them pronouns. And I am state rep-elect in Boston, Massachusetts, of a neighborhood of Boston. Something about, it's kind of gross. So I've never broken a bone, but I've broken my nose 3 times, and I've had like severe knee and ankle sprains just from playing sports. So you can kind of hear me like creaking down the hallway, and it's really quiet. I'll never be able to sneak up on you. So.
Oh my gosh. So I did not know where this was gonna go when I threw this in, but I'm happy we did this. All right, so DJ Dark and Stormy, I'm going back to you.
Yes.
We're going back to you, Ms. Mays. So you come to the legislature, and we knew each other before you decided to run for office, because you were the executive director of New Voices for Reproductive Justice, and so you've been on the front line of this fight long before the Dobbs decision, and been so involved in this. So tell me about how the Dobbs decision played into your race. Tell me about how you think it affected the historic victories we had in Pennsylvania, and just rub it in everybody's faces again. Tell us about the historic victories we had in Pennsylvania.
Thank you for that question. I am a reproductive justice organizer. It's who I am, it's how I live, it's how I ran, it's how I will lead, it's how I will represent the people of House District 24 in the city of Pittsburgh. Y'all can clap, it's okay. Listen, we need it because so many of us are going to be so many of us are going to be the first. And so I walked into the Capitol, Rep. Kenyatta, and I had walked into the Capitol before many, many times as an advocate, as a fighter, as someone coming to hold our legislators accountable for all the ways in which they criminalize and exploit and vilify all of us for what we choose to do with our bodies. So as a reproductive justice leader, organizer, whatever you want to say, I'm always led by our ethos, what we believe in the reproductive justice movement, is that we all have the human right to control our bodies, our sexuality, our gender, our work, our reproduction, and the ability to form our families. And so and this is for all of us. It's especially for LGBTQ plus communities. it's especially for BIPOC communities, specifically black folks. So the work I've done was with and for and led by black women and girls and femmes and gender expansive folks. For 18 years, I did that work. And so we are the leaders that should be at the table when there's a bill about if you can or should, or how you may have an abortion, or how and why and should you may bring a child into this world. But the most important thing about the movement for reproductive justice is that it's intersectional. So we're going to talk about healthcare, and we're going to talk about racism. We're going to talk about transphobia, and we're going to talk about environmental justice. All those things are important. And so I was during my race in May, we saw the leaked documents. And it was one of the darkest days in all the time that I had been doing the work. But I also knew it was going to wake the sleeping giant. I don't think some in our generation have always appreciated the protections we had with Roe v. Wade, but you have to understand the attacks that have been, that we've endured in state legislatures across the nation. And so it was an important day, a day that could be not only mourned, but opportunity to leverage it for victory in primaries where I beat my incumbent. And because I was already talking about reproductive justice as a campaign platform, not just pivoting to it because it was trendy and politically opportune. And that was the difference. And so I do believe that carried the wave into the general election and was monumental for our new U.S. Senator John Fetterman, our governor, Josh Shapiro, who ran against an extremist, a racist, a Klansman, who was committed to making abortion illegal, to our lieutenant governor, to Summer Lee, the first black woman ever from Pennsylvania to go to Congress. She's here right now in D.C., and I'm happy to follow in her footsteps and continue the important work. But up and down the ballot, reproductive justice, abortion access, and all those things we hold dear were critical for victories in Pennsylvania.
Well, thank you so much, Rep-elect. This is going to be a lot of fun in Pennsylvania very soon. So, Rep-elect Sam, I want to come to you. In your race, you talked a lot about your own personal story. You talked about the need for the Commonwealth, Massachusetts, second best Commonwealth, to invest more in mental health care, in substance abuse. Talk about how that played in your race and how you were able to use that personal experience to win in your election.
Sure. So I think it's something that, especially in Massachusetts, where we're really struggling with an opioid epidemic, like most of the states, but ours is particularly concentrated in Boston. It's something that has impacted almost everyone, like family members, friends, tangentially. Everyone kind of knows someone who's struggling with some sort of substance abuse and mental health issues. What are they called when they're together? Dual diagnosis, yes. You do social work. And how we're addressing them. And I think that a lot of times for a lot of people, it's still something that's kind of quieter and that you don't talk about. So the fact that I was campaigning and going out there and talking about how, growing up, my dad served in Operation Desert Storm, came back with PTSD. He's also a first-generation Latino man. My grandparents immigrated here from Mexico. And so he has all these other cultural factors kind of playing in. He began to drink a lot. He started to use drugs and was unable to be present in our family. And so he wasn't around for a long time. And he didn't get sober till I already had left to college. And by then, I'm older and I have to rebuild a relationship with my dad. But then I was able to because I talk about how he had support from his union. He had support from really solid health insurance that came from that union. And that was able to build a stabilization network for him. So part of the work that we want to do in Massachusetts and that I'd like to push forward is how do we create opportunities for stabilization for folks who are going into mental health treatment or folks who are going into substance use and abuse treatment, right? Because you can't just put someone in a 10-day, 30-day, 90-day program and expect them to come out into the world and be fine. And the same thing works for people in the same way. If you're struggling with something, you have to have a support system. And that's one of the things about like the queer community that we talk about a lot, is how family isn't just blood, family is the network you surround yourself with, and it works the same way for mental health and substance use and abuse and folks who are struggling with navigating that line. Because you can use, it's a spectrum, right? You can use recreationally and be okay, and then you can use too much and it starts to impact your life in a negative way, and that's when you need to figure out what steps do I need to take to be the person that I want to be. Same thing for mental health. I've been going to therapy since I was 9. My mom was very pro-therapy, so we always talked about our feelings in the house, and it's something that we need to work on building up to. We don't have a strong workforce pipeline for folks who want to go into mental health. And if we do, it's folks who have the means by which to go to college, to pay for these things, to take on the debt. You're getting a poor salary when you come out. So how are we supporting folks from more marginalized communities to get into these roles so we can have representative mental health care as well? So it's complicated. It's also incredibly common, and it's something I think that if we talk about more in public, we can get folks access to the kind of health and treatment that they need.
Thank you so much. Thank you for running and leading with your heart and your personal story. It makes such an impact in winning these close, tough races. Now, talking about a close, tough race, Senator-elect, you won by 83 votes, am I right? 83? 82 votes? For folks listening at home, that's close. That's real close. And so, but your victory was not just historic in the fact that you're going to be the first openly gay man to ever serve in the unicameral in Nebraska, but you also, with your victory, stopped Republicans from getting a filibuster-proof majority in the unicameral. And then selfishly, you get to serve with my best friend, Megan Hunt. So anyway, so tell me what that means for Nebraska, for people who might not be familiar with the unicameral. Tell me why this is such a big deal, because it is.
Absolutely. So, yeah, 82 votes. It was truly a nail biter. And for more context on that, if it were 81 votes, my race would have, by state statute, gone into an automatic recount. So literally, that one vote, and my husband takes full credit for that because, so he's Canadian, and he actually became a U.S. citizen last year. So this was his first election that he was able to vote.
Oh, you got you a man from Canada.
That one vote. But it is important. So we have a bit of a unique system in Nebraska in our state legislature. We have a unicameral, and so we are a one-house body. We have 49 state senators throughout the state. And it's a nonpartisan body, so we don't technically caucus on a party basis. However, you do need 17 senators to filibuster, and the filibuster is particularly important in our state because we only have one body, so we do not have that extra check and balance. So it is a big deal to have the 17 there to be able to stop extreme, dangerous legislation that we certainly are anticipating. Frankly, it's the only reason that we do not have an abortion ban currently in Nebraska. We had 17 led by Senator Megan Hunt, who will be here tomorrow. So yes, cheers for Megan, she's incredible. So that is why, as a traditionally red state, we've been able to protect those rights. Now, Senator Hunt will talk about this a lot. We still have Democrats in the body who are anti-abortion. So that is not a guarantee we will be able to continue to protect that right in our state, but we are going to fight aggressively to ensure that abortion remains safe and legal in our state, as well as we anticipate, anti-trans legislation, anti-LGBT legislation. So it's important to have that number there, and it's very significant for the state. So,
congratulations, big deal. Rep-elect Zephyr, you made some big history in Montana, y'all. This is Montana. You also have another colleague, non-binary colleague, also won, and so this is like a historic just moment in Montana. Talk to me about that. Talk to me also about this wave of anti-trans legislation that we're seeing come out, where hundreds and hundreds of bills have been introduced. But I was like reading all about you, and you did this article that I loved, where you're talking about winning and you're on a flight. You just tell the story. You tell the story. I loved it.
Thank you. First off, Montana is no stranger to progressive policies and ideas. We sent the first woman to Congress in Jeanette Rankin. We're AFL-CIO 1 and 2 are in Montana fighting the Copper Kings. So we have a long history of standing with progressive values. And I'm grateful to be there alongside S.J. Howell, the first non-binary person elected in Montana. And so the story that I told was I was at a 3-month post-op appointment on election day and flew back to Missoula as the election results were coming in. And because it's Missoula, I wound up sitting next to and behind my constituents, talking to them on the plane, waiting for results to come in, checking the Wi-Fi. And as I landed, I was exchanging numbers and wound up being the last person off the plane. And as I got up, the flight attendant looked at me and said, "What's got you so happy?" And I said, "Well, I won my election, like, yay." And I took a couple steps away and I turned and I said, "Actually, it's more than that. I'm gonna be the first trans woman elected in Montana." And she started crying and she went, "My son is trans. Can I hug you?" And so we stood in the back of this plane and we hugged, and she pulled out photos of her and her son in Paris and talked to me about how she was gonna be his strongest ally nonstop, and how she was scared, how his transition had filled him with joy, and how this moment gave her hope. And it filled me with hope, and one of the things I said about that is, it doesn't matter if you are in public office, if you're on a street corner, if you're 30,000 feet in the air, you are never far from someone who loves us. And
write that down for folks taking the notes in this.
And that fills me with hope, and it's one of the ways I stay hopeful. And that day-to-day lived experience, whether it's that flight or when my district is 2 square miles. I walk through it, bus through it every day. And the way that I'm greeted and treated by my community, and when I was knocking doors, I had folks introduce me to their kids because they were excited to, meet me. I had a 70-year-old woman beg me to make Montana safe for her grandbaby again. And knowing that once you drill down below the media rhetoric and the sort of far-right personalities, LGBTQ people, we know it. We're embraced by our communities. And that was true in my personal life. It was true in my campaign. And as I got into the first few days of legislative orientation, there were many Republicans who came up to me and said, "Hey, careful, X, Y, and Z are, maybe looking to do some bad stuff, but we've got your back. We will stand with you. What do you need?" And seeing that gives me hope. And to close on that, I got a thank you note after my election, and it's the biggest thing that gives me hope. And it said, if the moral arc of history bends towards justice, it's because people like us bend it day in and day out.
So this just gives you a sense of the incredible talent that we're going to have at the state level. And I think Dobbs is just a reminder of the fact that everything that's important doesn't happen in D.C. A lot of the things that matter to you and matter to your lives and matter to our communities is happening in the state houses and the legislatures, where we are incredibly lucky because of the support of Victory Fund and so many others, that you have these incredible candidates and now rep and senator-elects who are here. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do one more question, then I'm going to have them all answer round robin, and I'm going to be staring at you to limit your responses, because I want to get 1 or 2 questions from the audience. And so just give you a chance. Think, right? You're thinking, you're mulling. Okay, here we go. You ready for this? Now we'll jump across this couch if you go on and on. Now, this is what I want to know. What is the press? What are the pundits? What are they missing? Because I think Rep-elect Zephyr, you're a great segue to this. Yes, there are a lot of hateful, individuals who are elected to office, a lot of really bad legislation that is being introduced. But everybody was talking about a red wave, which I did not see happen. It looked more like a rainbow wave that we saw happen instead. And so because of that, clearly the press, the media bubble, the DC bubble missed something. What did they miss? And I'll just start with you, Senator-elect, and we'll just come around.
Yeah, it's a great question, and Representative-elect Zephyr, I think you spoke so eloquently to this, and how I can speak just to my race specifically. We knocked 32,823 doors, and we did that because I'm a social worker. My background's in mental health treatment, and I know that as a species, we are neurobiologically wired to connect. And it is extraordinarily difficult to hate up close. So I knew if I could get in front of as many, if I could get in front of, I'm losing. You're done. Yes. So I'll wrap it up. But I knew if I could get in front of as many voters as possible, have those conversations, connect with folks, that we could win them over. And so I think that's why we have a rainbow wave. We had candidates, one incredible candidates, as we're seeing as from my peers on the stage here. But two, we put in the work and we talk to our constituents, and I think that makes all the difference in the world.
Similarly, I'm a community organizer by profession, how I identify as in my soul. And so I think that it's that we were on the ground talking to folks, and that we need to keep doing that. And the media is at this 30,000 foot level, and they're not on the ground. And if they don't have the resources to put people on the ground in the same way. So we're getting this distorted perspective of what's happening, when actually if you're out there talking to folks, it is hard to say it to someone's face, hey, I hate you. I don't want you to have rights, or any of those things. So it's just a perspective shift, and we need to remember that we need to keep going out into community as much as possible, and we need to keep creating those cohesive spaces so that we can continue having conversations that reflect the diversity of thought and the diversity of need in our communities.
Thank you.
I don't think that our democracy was ready for a seismic shift in how we think, who we believe is electable, how we run our campaigns, what issues we talk about. And I think that made the difference, especially with young voters. Of course, the overperformance of Black women voters year after year, cycle after cycle. And so Black women are always discounted in everything that we do, but we win elections when we vote, we win elections when we run, and when we lead. And so I think that without the representation that is as big and as expansive as we in this room, we don't get the democracy that we all deserve. And so I think that is what was missing, and that above all, I think voters want elected leaders who are themselves. So you're going to get all of me. You're going to get all of this every day. You're going to get these hats. You're going to get this reproductive justice. You're going to get all of me every day that I go to serve the people of my district and of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Yes.
For me, one of the big indicators of what got missed was we obviously saw in 22 the huge amount of anti-LGBTQ bills. And one of the things that struck me was the rhetoric was getting worse, the vitriol was getting worse, pedophiles, groomers, et cetera, et cetera. But it felt like a lot of those attacks were happening because they had to resort to that, because we are embraced by our communities by and large. Public opinion is in our favor. And what we saw from the midterms was then, yes, maybe that played well with a small subset, but by and large, families, they see the egregious lies and they say, no, that's not true. I know so-and-so, she works there. I know, Jenny, she's trans and she's a phenomenal mother. What are you talking about? And to me, we saw the sign of the increased attacks and how all in the far right was going. And what we missed was beneath all of that, there was, as there always has been, love.
I'm taking you from Montana. I love this. Okay, so we're gonna have two questions because Because I have my Pennsylvania brain on always. We can get somebody from the east, somebody from the west, so nobody complains. Is that okay, Latasha? All right, so let's get somebody from this general section. I cannot really see you, so you're gonna have to, engage. None of you are shy. Please stop pretending. Who do we have? Oh, we have somebody. Okay.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. So, hello everybody.
Hello.
Oh, I should stand. Okay. Thank you. My name is Chisimdi Wodo, but you can call me Sim. I live in California, and this is my first time attending this beautiful conference.
Yay!
Thank you. And my question is, how do we build on these victories? How do we make these solidified? How do we not lose this force and it becomes transient? I remember I've lived in the US just like 5 years, but I remember 2 years or 3 years ago, Alabama elected a senator, and Utah elected a black Republican, and some people felt that there is a shift, and that shift is gonna be continual, but it wasn't. It just happened that positive thing happened and it got lost. So how do we make this consistent? I wanna keep seeing the state legislatures, turning more towards inclusivity and being more diversified. How do we make that happen? Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm gonna nominate on our panel. Senator-elect, we'll start with you, and then Rep. Mays will jump in. And then for the next question, we'll do the same thing.
Sure. Well, they keep doing this to me. No. It's a great question. I think that, we do need to ensure that we're continuing to build on our representation and on our power. And I think that, our community is powerful. And institutions, I can just speak for myself, like the Victory Institute, I did candidate training with them. And this was when I, again, my background's in social work. I never necessarily thought running for office was for me. But Senator Hunt has been a great mentor for me as well, encouraged me to run. I connected with the Victory Institute. So continuing to have organizations and support like this in place for members of our community that might not kind of traditionally be scouted, for lack of a better word, to run for office is I think, a key component in that.
That's testing. DJ Dark and Stormy. Thank you for the question. This is something we're grappling with among my colleagues in the state legislature in Pennsylvania, but also something I realize in running is that we are lacking the robust infrastructure that our opposition has. And I mean that not just our political infrastructure, in terms of the opportunity to be here, the Victory Institute. This is an amazing space and place, but how do we replicate it? How do we build the infrastructure within our parties? Because the party where I'm from, where is that program, the focus to build the pipelines of leaders? Now, I've done leadership development work, and there's no movement without organizers. There's no movement without leaders and activists and people who take direct action to win the change and the justice that we want. Without that infrastructure on the electoral side, without that infrastructure in our community organizations, those who are doing political work, without that infrastructure with us as elected representatives, we're missing all the amazing leaders or people who don't know. They're waiting for us to ask them. They're waiting for us to open the door for them, not just by our winning, but by what we leave behind. What is the apparatus that we leave behind to build generations of leaders to follow us? Because I want people to take my place. Because we're not going to be doing this forever, and we often don't think ahead 20, 30 years, but how are we building those pipelines now?
And that's powerful. And while we get somebody here ready for a question, we are stewards, not owners of these seats. We are stewards. And so, okay, so we have somebody here. I see you in the back. You're wearing blue. Here.
Hi, my name is Devin, they, them pronouns, and I'm not an elected official. I'm a first-year law student, and
come on, law school.
And queer students this semester, we've been facing a enormous amount of stress and hate and vitriol, both from other students, but also from outside organizations. And so it's really been up to us to fight on the ground at school to be recognized and to be affirmed and get the treatment that we deserve. But it's also been extremely emotionally taxing. And so I'm just curious if anyone has advice or words of wisdom for kind of us young folks still in school trying to fight back against these institutions.
Okay, and before you answer, I saw you right here. You had a question as well. Yeah, I think this panel, I think they can handle both questions. So come.
Hi, I'm Isla. Thank you. I was one of the Victory Congressional interns this past summer. I had the honor of working with Representative Richie Torres. I'm the daughter of 2 immigrants from Iran, and I wanted to talk about revolutions. Right now, we are seeing revolutions led by very, very brave, courageous women in Iran after the death of Mahsa Amini. And I'm wondering how we, from a country that, although we still have much progress to be made, we've come a long way. We have a lot of privilege. We have rights that others do not in other countries. How do we best support the women and the people in other countries who are trying to lead revolutions of their own?
All right, so I want to tie this together. So you have folks talking about our students, our college campuses, and also much more broadly, revolutions happening in countries who need to see us, who need that visibility, who need support. Sam, Zooey, I know you can handle it. I'll turn it to you.
No pressure.
No pressure, all pressure.
So for the question of care, I think about, I think of it as like concentric circles, so circles within circles within circles. And like at the broadest level, I obviously am caring about the state of Montana and my constituents in Missoula, Montana. But as you narrow down, I'm caring about my LGBTQ community, and I'm caring about my trans community. And as you get narrower and narrower, I'm caring about the dear friends in my life, the people, my coworkers and family. And at the very center of that, I have to care for myself. And that means finding the ways to, recoup and find hope, as we talked about in my daily life. And it's important for me to acknowledge that if I'm not doing that personal care, if I'm not doing that close community care, I don't have a buffer against the hate when it comes in. But if I'm with my fellow activists and we've been doing the work day in and day out, and I know I have shoulders to cry on and I have people who can fill me with hope from their wins, that makes buffering against those attacks easier. It makes doing the day in, day work out easier. And to your question, it's important to note that those circles overlap with other communities and the work that they do. I'm lucky in the University of Montana. Our provost, Pardis Madavi, she was banned, Iranian American, and she was banned for giving a talk on the sexual revolution decades ago. And making sure that I'm going, okay, hey, this is your community, this is my community, what can we be doing to support? And understanding when it's my turn to speak, when it's my turn to amplify others, and making sure that as leaders, we are doing the work to thread to connect the dots between the issues. And that's how I think of it.
Wow.
To the question about caring for yourself, I think it's, I was really active in college, and I went to I went to UCLA. It's a pretty diverse college as far as colleges go, and I remember we would get so caught up in feeling like there was this battle of us against them, and that's kind of in my opinion, that's what burns you out. And so it's really taking the opportunity to build these community circles and to make sure that you have networks and friends who you're building in leadership with and who you're creating communal power with, so that it's not ever just one person carrying everything. Or sometimes some people need to step back and take a break, but that's okay because you have the rest of the group who's ready to take it and move forward. So just making sure that you're always reaching out and always trying to build those bridges, whether it's with allies, whether it's with the folks who you're advocating for changes against or with, just making it relational. Because to the point earlier, I think a lot of our work is based in relationships, and one of the things that I think I've learned in politics, for better or for worse, people will do things for you because they like you, not necessarily because they believe in something. Maybe in time they'll come to believe in it, but it's all about that relationship and the time you put in with other people. So making sure that you're taking that time and you're taking that space and you're building up a strong group of folks. You're making sure that new people are coming into the space and that you're not just making it exclusive, and that you're continually growing so that eventually you organize and become the bigger fish over the smaller group, and you can win power in that way. And hopefully that prevents burnout and prevents the stress of constantly feeling like you're under deluge. Also therapy helps too. And you can do like peer-to-peer counseling. And then revolution. My family's from Mexico, and in Mexico there's like the revolution against the femicides and women's rights and access to abortion. I don't know. It's hard. It's complicated, and I think that a lot of times we have these revolutions and then we have these backlashes where we get more conservative again. Like if you think about back to like Iran's first revolutions, like in the 70s, what happened afterwards? Like I guess the thing would be like, if these revolutions are happening, what steps are we then taking to prevent the backslide? Similarly in the United States, we have these revolutions, we become more liberal. What steps are we taking to prevent the backslides that we're currently experiencing, especially in a concentrated minority of folks? And so I think the ways we can be most helpful is helping build up that scaffolding so that we're no longer taking these opportunities for granted, and we are able to then make the changes that we actually want to see instead of having the automatic backslide because we did it and we didn't create like a pipeline of folks who are ready to continue to move forward. And I'm not sure how that works in supporting other countries and other populations, or what the best way is to do that without feeling like imperialistic as a country. But I don't know. That's my thought.
Senator, Rep-elect, do you have anything very, very quick to add?
I think we don't always understand how deeply connected our lived experiences are and our struggles are. I think that's a big missing piece. We also tend to act in clans. Like we only are looking at our struggles when we are fighting for justice and fighting for important issues. And so I think the biggest thing is the opportunity for that connection to be of support. And even if we're looking at the diaspora, the African diaspora, we're not always doing the work in the United States that we should be doing in places around the world as well. So I think that's a huge gap that we have to mend in order to take the type of, create the type of change we want to see globally as well as in our respective nations.
Very quick.
I'll really quickly respond to the gentleman in the back about the self-care and kind of the pressure that might come with being in the position you're in. You know, there are a lot of folks that are going to think that they have the ability to negotiate your value. And the reality is none of our values are negotiated externally. So I think as long as you can stay true to yourself and know that your value is not something to be debated outside of yourself, you'll be just fine. So.
Wow. So I want you to keep clapping for this incredible panel, these incredible leaders. I want you to keep clapping for the incredible Victory Fund staff. I want you to keep clapping for this incredible staff here at the JW Marriott. I want you to keep clapping for yourselves. And then I want you to stop clapping so I can say very quickly, take as much as you can from this conference. Take as much as you can from getting to know the individuals here, people who will become your friends, your confidants. I mentioned Megan Hunt. I met her right at a Victory Fund conference, and now I can't imagine my life without her. You will find those folks in this room. So take it all in, embrace it all, but most importantly, be good to yourself. Thank you, guys.
Thank you to our panel. Now, please welcome to the stage Sean Mickens, Associate Vice President of External Affairs at Comcast NBC Universal.
Hello, everyone. I know it's kind of tough for me to come up with the boring sponsorship remarks after such an amazing panel. Can we give our panelists one more round of applause, please? I mean, I'm just sitting back and reflecting that having their voices in many of the rooms where crucial and critical decisions are being made about our community is just something that I cannot express enough gratitude for. We're lucky to have amazing leaders like them, many of the other amazing leaders who are sitting here in the room, and our state legislators, Congress, and statewide offices across the country. And we're grateful for them. And those of you in the room for the willingness to run for political office, because I'm not doing it. Good afternoon to all of you. As the voice of God told you a moment ago, my name is Sean Mickens. I am the Associate Vice President for External Affairs at Comcast NBC Universal. It is an honor to welcome you all to the opening plenary and to kick off this great, amazing conference, a Rainbow Wave in 2022. A special thank you to Mayor Parker for your tremendous leadership and the Victory team for your commitment and passion to our community. As an out proud Black gay man, I'm honored to work for a company dedicated to supporting my communities. Comcast has been recognized for its inclusivity of LGBTQ employees, being named as the best place to work for LGBTQ equality. And we are proud to offer a wide array of programming influenced by and geared towards an LGBTQ+ audience. Our Xfinity film and TV collection has the largest curation of LGBTQ entertainment directly informed by our community. And the collection includes more than 500 LGBT-centric storylines and characters. We are also proud to produce NBC Out. This is the first LGBTQ news vertical created by a major broadcast media organization that showcases featured stories, original videos, and other Unity content about and of interest to our community. In my position, I see firsthand the investments and intentionality that my company has made in fostering strong relationships with organizations like the Victory Institute, which are dedicated to advancing and supporting LGBTQ people in issues domestically and internationally. We are proud of these relationships and look forward to continuing to work with you, to support you, and to uplift your voices. As we learned a moment ago, this election cycle, we were thrilled to see so many out LGBTQ people win crucial races at both federal and state levels. As many of you know in this room, over 1,000 out LGBTQ people ran for office this year. And a great round of applause to the Victory Institute for training 1 out of every 5 of these candidates. And another little known fact, Victory has a 71% win rate. So congrats again to Mayor Parker and Team Victory for all your work this year. Thank you for our Rainbow Wave. So with that, I'm not sure exactly whether I'm holding you guys where we are in the agenda and whether I'm keeping you guys from food and drink. So I just want to say as an ending thing that on behalf of Comcast NBC Universal, it is an honor to support you all here at the Victory. We're looking forward to continuing our partnership with you. Thank you for this amazing conference, and welcome everyone.
Thank you, Sean. Now please welcome Axios national politics reporter Sophia Cai for a conversation with U.S. Congresswoman Sharice Davids.
Which one do you want me to sit in?
You got it.
Okay.
I was like, we can do
I
the
need a
couch,
nap.
You know, I can just be on the floor.
Yeah. I was like, well, if things are gonna get deep, I could lay down on the couch and just tell you what it's been
She can
like.
be in therapy with me.
Yeah. I've been humble brag, I do a lot of therapy.
Another round of applause. Congresswoman Sharice Davids, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to be here as a member of the 117th Congress and the 118th Congress.
I mean, the odds were stacked against you this time around, especially after the redistricting.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we heard, some rumors here or there, things were not looking that good. I mean, tell us about that, because really, you came back and you won by a significant margin here.
Well, good evening. I don't know what time it is. It's
we got a little while.
Yeah. Well, hi everybody. So yes, absolutely. There were a lot of factors at play this year that made it. It certainly was not a guarantee that I would win re-election, that I would be back, and able to continue working really hard on behalf of the Kansas 3rd. But even though it wasn't guaranteed, I do think that what we got to see is that, one, there, I think, really is a pushback and desire to push back on some of this really extreme stuff that we're seeing across the country. And I think that because of the work, not just of the folks on my team, but also the folks who are working to get our governor reelected, to get out there and yeah, I'm happy that our governor got reelected. Laura Kelly's awesome. To the work to get our state house folks elected. Because of all of that, I think that I think that's why we saw the outcome in the Kansas 3rd and in the state of Kansas. And I think that we definitely had a jolt of energy in August when the culmination of so much work resulted in us pushing back against an extreme attempt to insert politicians into very private decisions that should be between a patient and a doctor, and trying to open the door to have one of these really extreme total bans on abortion in our state. And I think it helps when I think it really helps when people can see the effort is, it's not like screaming into the void. We actually got to see the results of people truly having sometimes very hard conversations with friends and maybe not friends and their neighbors and coworkers and that sort of thing. So it wasn't guaranteed, and there was certainly an effort by the legislature to try to redistrict in a way that would make it impossible for me to win. But it turns out a common thread is, if you're doing your job, people like that. Oh, I'm sorry, doing your job well.
Big difference there, big difference. So we have some record numbers for LGBTQ candidates and winners this year, and I spoiled them backstage with the Congresswomen. There are 196 state leg seats won by LGBTQ candidates.
But wait, it gets better. What's that number up from?
That number is up from 118 in 2020. That is a 60% increase.
That's really amazing. Now, I know we have a lot of work to do to get, I don't remember what the number is, because it's pretty big, of how many more people from the LGBTQ plus community we need to get elected to truly have it be representative of the number of folks in our country. But I think that, I just think that, like, especially organizations like Victory Institute are absolutely part of why we're seeing such an increase, is because I think, like, there's not any, I always tell people, like, the difference between me and a whole bunch of other people is that I decided to put my name on a ballot and my shoes. No, I'm kidding. But truly, I do think that having an organization that's specifically reaching out to the LGBTQ plus community and saying, your voice absolutely matters in this process, and we want to be helpful, has made a huge difference. And so I just appreciate everybody who continues to come to this specific conference, but is doing work both here and all across the world to help make sure that our LGBTQ plus communities are being not just represented, but listened to and acknowledged and hopefully made safer.
I mean, tell me, so the other number, the denominator there that we might have been looking for, there's more than 7,000 state leg seats.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, give me
So
your
there really
reaction
is. I mean, it's a
here.
lot.
Like,
That's my reaction.
What does the increase, mean, especially since a lot of the very contentious battles, whether it's, trans participation in sports, a lot of the very hot-button issues are, playing out in states. A lot of folks in this room
Or played out is what you, no, I'm kidding. I'm tired of people talking about some of the politicians that are out there being just, everybody just yell out what you think they're being. And I can just do this so that I can be diplomatic. So I'm sorry I keep moving around. Like, I feel like I'm short. So if I sit all the way back, my feet don't quite touch. And I feel like that's not very congressional. So I'm like, so I think it's more important than ever for us to have organizations like this, and I really can't see anything. So, but I see the Kansas table, it looks like. Hello, love you guys. It's more important than ever because of the ridiculous behavior that we're seeing from people who are seeking to represent us, whether it's in state legislatures or county commissions or city councils or the House of Representatives or the Senate or the President. It makes such a huge difference when we're in the room, because it's really hard to dehumanize someone who is standing right in front of you as a peer. And so I do think that we're seeing an element of, I hope, continued pushback, not just on the extreme policies that people are introducing related to reproductive rights and access, but also around the completely ridiculous attempts to demonize, particularly our trans community members. Like, to me, doing that, it is a disqualifying factor for wanting to represent any community. If you're willing to demonize a community, then you shouldn't be representing any community. And it's dangerous for our young people. And I think that there's too many of us in the LGBTQ plus community who know that it can make all the difference for our young people to be acknowledged and to be treated with respect and dignity. And whether or not we're going to have them as part of our leadership and our community and our families and friends in the future, because we already lose too many of our young people because they don't feel respected. They don't get the love that they deserve. They don't get treated as the humans they are. And I'm always going to push back on anybody who would try to make our young people feel like they shouldn't be here. And I think that things like the Equality Act or the Respect for Marriage Act are the kinds of things that in the everyday, we might not necessarily see the impact of it, but absolutely, like, I just hope that we have young people who know that, like, yes, there's a ton of us out here in the world, in Congress, in the Senate, in our state legislatures, on our county commissions, in our city councils, who absolutely value our young people, regardless of what experience they're having, regardless of where they're at in their lives. And, you know, whether you're part of the LGBTQ plus community or not, you should be treated with dignity and respect. And I just think that somehow we have so many people running for office right now and are in office that have, like, lost sight of that.
And you've actually written a children's book, Sharice's Big Voice.
Yeah.
Speaking
I didn't know that's where we were going. So, sorry.
Well, it's a fun fact. You know, it's a fun fact. It is
No,
set
but
in a
it's actually, it's part of,
and you spent quite a bit of time, right? Like, and you mentioned in the weekends and at night, sort of working on this project. So.
And in the book, one of the things at the end, it's like, you know, because it's not a book about, like, how to get to Congress. Because if it was, I don't know, it's basically like, my mom was in the Army, I lived all over. I went to 19 different schools, just kidding. I only went to 7 colleges and universities. It took me 8 years to get my bachelor's. It's not a book about, like, getting to Congress, but it's a book about the journey and how each of us has our own journey. And you just kind of don't know where it's going to take you. But that no matter what, hopefully you learn a lot while you're working hard, and that you deserve to be seen and heard. Like, no matter what, you deserve to be seen and heard. And I think too many of us don't get told that. And some of us never get told that. And so when you said the thing about the children's book, I was like, wow, she really, like, read that thing. Because she knows that you deserve to be seen and heard. But I guess that's not what we were doing.
Okay, well, let's talk legislation. This week, the Senate voted to codify same-sex marriage.
I usually don't like to talk about the Senate, but we can talk about them now. Yes, they did.
Well, they did their piece this week, didn't they?
Yeah.
So, I mean, give us some of the behind the scenes. You know, I mean, we've talked in the halls when it really was stalled. And to me, it seems like, you know, these senators in this case have finally followed public opinion. I mean, if you look at the numbers, I think it's close to 70% of Americans believe that this should be the law and that it should be protected. You know, and 20, 30 years ago, it was flipped. The numbers were completely flipped.
Yeah.
So, you know, the American people changed their mind in less than 2 decades. The Senate voted last week, and, you know, we do expect the House to follow. But, I mean, tell me about what that means, how we got here, as well as where you think we will go from here in terms of the next big piece of legislation for the LGBTQ community.
So the House passed the we passed the House version of the Respect for Marriage Act.
House version, yep.
A few months ago. Time doesn't feel real, so I'm not sure. It was not that long ago. We passed it, and the Senate, yeah, it looked pretty stalled out, and I wasn't sure if we were going to see a vote on any version of the bill on the Senate side. So I felt encouraged to see that not only was it moving, but that that we had a bipartisan effort. And I know that like a lot of pieces of legislation, that it's a step in the right direction, a step in the correct direction, and that it will repeal the Defense of Marriage Act, which, you know, I just actually was talking to somebody about this earlier. In 1996, they passed that. And they were like, how do you feel given the arc? And I was like, wow, I was 16 in 1996. And now getting the chance to vote on and pass a piece of legislation that will repeal something that was such bad policy is, I mean, it's a very wild experience. But I do think of the Respect for Marriage Act as just that. It's a step. And when I say a step, I mean not just around making sure that people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community have their family units recognized and under the law and treated equally and with respect under the law, but that we absolutely have a lot more steps to take. And that's whether we're talking about in healthcare, in education, in housing, we have a lot of steps that we still need to take. And my hope is that what we're seeing is a level of momentum that will get us to those next steps. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of energy, so I'm hoping that, you know, I just need a little tiny bit of momentum to get going. So maybe we'll see some better numbers on the Equality Act going forward, because I do think that there is I do think that there's a need to have an Equality Act to make sure that when it comes to education, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to housing, that we're not that whether you get treated equally under the law depends on which state you're in. Because in Kansas, I can tell you right now, it's not equal. And I know that that's true in so many other states.
So you are looking for something more comprehensive to pass?
Oh yeah, we're going to keep working on it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we've passed the Equality Act twice out of the House, but we have a lot of work to do. And yeah, I'm ready to do it. I'm glad I get to be here another 2 years to keep working on it. Yeah.
Sharice Davids. Let's talk about next Congress. At Speaker Pelosi's retirement speech on the floor, you know, I was up in the galleries, and as everyone swarmed Pelosi to give her their warm wishes, Leader Hoyer was also in the room, you know, briefly, and you know, you came up to him and gave him a big hug and lingered for a moment. I mean, but he is not a part of the trio that was recently elected this week. Many see you as, you know, after, you know, this trio, the next generation of like potential leaders to lead the party. But look at her, she's like, it's no secret here. But I mean, tell me about this transition, your relationship with Leader Hoyer and Speaker Pelosi, and where you see yourself fitting in to the next Congress and its priorities?
That's a really good question. So a couple of things about the current leadership. When I was elected in 2018, I came in with literally the most diverse class ever in Congress. We made Congress the most diverse it had ever been, and that was, and I got elected alongside Deb Haaland as one of the first 2 Native women, and then she abandoned me. It's fine. Because now she's like the Secretary of Interior, right? So she's doing amazing work over there. And I have personally felt as though the leadership in the Democratic caucus, it doesn't mean I've always agreed with them or that they've always agreed with me, but I've always felt supported as a member of our caucus, as a new member of Congress. I have always felt as though, even if it didn't work out the way that I wanted it to, that I was heard by the leadership. And I think that's a really, really important thing. And, actually, so today, we heard from a number of people, and one of the things that was said today is that being united does not require unanimous agreement. You can be united without being unanimous. And I felt like that was like one of those profound things that sometimes we can forget. It makes sense, of course. We can, look, all of us in this room, we aren't gonna agree on 100% of stuff. I hope y'all agree with me that infrastructure is one of the sexiest things out there, but we're not gonna agree on everything. But when push comes to shove, my hope is that we can be united in our efforts to make progress for the LGBTQ plus community. And we can have disagreements about how to prioritize things and that sort of thing. But I think what we're seeing right now is it's this really interesting respect for, acknowledgement of all of the contributions that the leadership that we have been operating under has, like just all the legislation. And we got so much done this last session. We got a lot of stuff done. Drug price negotiation, infrastructure, chips and science, domestic manufacturing. Like, we got so much stuff done under this current leadership. And the next generation of leaders that we have coming in I was trying to come up with something because now leader Hakeem Jeffries likes to speak in threes, and he does like a lot of alliterations and that sort of thing. And I was like,
Have you got one for us today?
No, well, I was trying to come up with one yesterday, and I was like, is Hakeem's Heavy Hitters, is that one? No? I think I should stick to my day job. But I'm excited about it because they have been part of and helped usher in a bunch of the work that we got done. And I do think that while we're in this phase prior to the retaking of the majority by the caucus I'm a part of, I think that we have a real opportunity to get a lot of stuff done because we have some really capable new leaders coming up. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I like them all, which doesn't hurt.
Can't pick a favorite, can you?
Oh.
I won't make you do that.
Thank you. I was going to try to come up with something, but, I'm not like, that's kind of like one of those, which kid do you love the most questions, right?
So we're almost out of time.
But I was the favorite, so I don't know, I'm just kidding. Don't tell my brothers I said that.
You were the favorite among your siblings?
I don't know. I don't.
Yes. Well, if you want to leave us with, right, we have a GOP majority coming in. I don't know.
I didn't mean to be like that. I was.
If you want to leave us with one thing, that one idea, one surprise for the next year, that
Surprise.
That.
Can I share a story?
Yeah, let's share a story.
Okay.
to end
Partly
on.
because the beginning of the question was it's a GOP majority in the House, so I want to leave you with something uplifting. So
She cut me off.
yeah, I was talking to a young Native person a couple of days ago. She was like doing a project for school, and had a couple of questions, and so I probably gave long-winded answers to the first few, but then at the end, she literally said, wow, this thing's like blinking red at us. I'll try to make it quicker.
It's just for us.
Oh yeah, this is like telling me to be quiet. So she asked, like, all these things have been going on that have been so hard, the pandemic and like the impacts on her specific community and other Native communities, the mental and behavioral health issues that are going on, it's been hard. Like, life has been really hard for the last few years, and then there's a major case coming up before the Supreme Court, or a major decision that will be coming out from the Supreme Court related to the Indian Child Welfare Act, and could have big implications for tribal sovereignty. So she was asking me all this like heavy stuff has been going on. Like, how do you have any hope for the future? And I was like, oh yeah, I have tons of hope for the future. I mean, that doesn't mean I don't think it's going to be hard. Like, and people in the room are probably like, welcome to my life. It's hard. But I have never thought, whether we're talking about the Native community, the LGBTQ plus community, or so many people who are out there trying to make the world a better place, we not only have talent and like some flair, but we know what it's like for stuff to be really bad, and we know what it's like for stuff when you see that little improvement. And our young people, whether we agree with like any of the specific things or not, to see young people showing up over and over and over tells me that they see a future for themselves here, and they're trying to shape it. And what could be more hopeful than that? Every single young person I know that is working on stuff is doing it because they see themselves in the future. And that is absolutely something that we have to look forward to. And my job is to just try to make it that much more likely that they're going to be making the impact that they want to have. And that's kind of what a lot of us are doing, I think. So they have the majority. It's 2 years. And then we'll take it back.
Ladies and gentlemen, Congresswoman Sharice Davids, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophia and Congresswoman Davids. Now, join us in welcoming the Connecticut State Treasurer-elect, Erick Russell.
Good evening, everyone. I think it's evening now, we can say that. I am going to get right to it because my understanding is I'm the last thing between everyone and cocktails, which is not a good spot to be in. But it is truly humbling to be in this room with so many leaders of government and industry aligned in their commitment to inclusion, equality, and diversity. And it's my distinct honor to be here alongside my fellow newly elected LGBTQ plus colleagues. Running for office requires a certain amount of bravery. Putting your name on a ballot and asking your community to evaluate your aptitude, your ideals, and your values isn't easy for anyone, particularly as an LGBTQ plus candidate. I am inspired by your courage and your commitment to public service. And while this is certainly a joyous occasion to celebrate our hard-earned victories, I also want to acknowledge the LGBTQ plus leaders and candidates across the country that ran hard but came up short. Like those who came before us, their campaigns have undoubtedly laid the groundwork that others will follow. My decision to run for treasurer wasn't an easy one. I had never run for office and had enjoyed playing a behind-the-scenes role in policy and politics. But I've also seen firsthand how bold leadership in government can help people like my family and me. And I also understand that my standing before you as Connecticut's treasurer-elect is an unlikely story more broadly. I grew up in inner-city New Haven, Connecticut, working in my parents' small convenience store in a really tough area of the city. And my community was filled with hardworking people who, like my family, were ultimately working hard and trying to make ends meet to provide a better life for themselves and their families. But through that, we're also battling barriers that were put in front of them, whether it be barriers in education or access to quality job opportunities or housing, or the fact that the community was ravaged more broadly by drugs and violence. And as a black gay male in my neighborhood, I also understand that the likelihood of me ending up either dead or in jail is far greater than me standing here today. But it was my parents' hard work and sacrifice and the support of a few mentors that allowed me to be the first in my family to graduate from college and then law school, both in Connecticut, and then pursue opportunities my parents never could have imagined. Similarly, it was the support of organizations like the Victory Fund that put me in a position to have a successful campaign. And in that regard, the Victory Fund is critical infrastructure and an organization that I am proud to lend my voice and support to. It's also been an honor to run with many other incredible LGBTQ plus candidates supported by the Victory Fund. Candidates who were elected up and down the ballot across the country, folks who you've seen speak throughout this conference, as well as other history-making statewide candidates like Maura Healey from Massachusetts, Tina Kotek from Oregon, and my fellow treasurer-elect Mike Pichak from Vermont. It was actually the Victory Fund who informed me that I became the first openly gay black person elected to statewide office in American history. That is mind-blowing to me and something I don't take lightly. It's also a reflection of Connecticut's commitment to picking the best person for the job, no matter where they come from, what they look like, or who they love. And by supporting LGBTQ plus candidates at all levels, the Victory Fund is helping to level the playing field, shepherding new and diverse voices into public office, and making our government more representative of the communities they serve. It's also helping to balance the scales. A while back, enemies of progress began amassing power by starting small. They played the long game, beginning with local offices, until their influence reached into all levels of government. They've since used power in courts, state legislatures, election commissions, with devastating consequences. Abortion rights have been decimated. Large swaths of our population have lost faith in the electoral process. Racial and income inequalities have continued. Public health has been compromised. And now many of the bedrock victories of the equal rights movement are at risk. It's an unnerving but important reminder of the ways in which government action impacts the entirety of the world around us and the urgency of fighting back. I ran for treasurer because I believe it is a role that can be a powerful force for change, and that representation in government matters. As treasurer, I will be responsible for managing the state's $45 billion in pension and trust funds and over $250 billion in cash transactions. But in addition to responsibly managing our state's money and improving the state's overall fiscal health, there is immense opportunity to provide economic growth and upward mobility for all of our residents. And I'm committed to championing causes like baby bonds and the expansion of financial literacy programs, ensuring we aren't leaving any of our communities behind. To combat the erosion of the progress we've made, we can't be afraid to use the good power of government. The challenges we face are big, so our solutions should be big too. And regardless of your title or rank, we all have a collective responsibility to work towards the common goal of an inclusive community where people can live a safe and dignified life and everyone has an opportunity to succeed. Government is a tool that we should proudly use to protect our values. People should have faith that the candidates they vote for will govern in their best interest and reflect the communities they come from. That won't happen on its own. We have to prove we're up to the task. We can't let those who oppose progress pull us backwards. Recent events like the mass shooting in Colorado Springs show how irresponsible rhetoric, insufficient policy, and injustice can collide with devastating impact. It's yet another example of members of our community being targeted simply for being who they are, and a reminder that the stakes of our success could not be higher. Fortunately, we know that we have the numbers. An overwhelming majority of Americans support equal rights and equal protections under the law, and they are increasingly electing more diverse and inclusive candidates to represent them. I'm so proud to be among you. I'm so grateful to the Victory Fund and the Victory Institute for bringing us all together this week, and for the work they've done and will do to help thoughtful, talented, and courageous candidates take office. To maximize the impact of our individual work, we all need to be rowing in the same direction. We will face obstacles, some unique to our jobs, and some ubiquitous as LGBTQ figures in public service. But we will overcome them because we have to. When each of us wins, our entire community wins. This is not about claiming victory for myself, but rather claiming victory for every person with an unlikely story like mine and like so many of yours. I have boundless faith that we will rise to meet this moment. I can't wait to see the many inspiring and important things that you all do, and I can't wait to celebrate those victories together. Thank you all.
Thank you to our phenomenal panel and speakers. Now, please welcome to the stage Victory Institute's Executive Director, Elliot Imsey, for a brief update on tonight's events.
Very brief, I promise you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you to our amazing speakers and panelists. I've already seen so many familiar faces, some new faces. I'm really excited to be kicking off this conference with you all. We really appreciate the opportunity to be together at a time of celebration where we really have elected a rainbow wave of LGBTQ people, but also at a time of difficulty and reflection, as Senator Moreno and Representative Herod spoke to earlier. We hope you get to connect and spend time with each other, maybe even plot a little bit if you need to. And we'll be able to do a lot together over the next few days. And we have a lot of receptions that will allow you to connect and talk with each other. So tonight is our opening reception. I am truly the only thing standing between you and that reception. The DJ is already starting. That is on the top floor, on the lobby floor at the Penn Avenue Terrace. Off-site tonight is our Leading in Color event to celebrate our incredible LGBTQ leaders of color. That will be at the Mayflower Club, and our mayor and soon-to-be Congressman Robert Garcia will be speaking there. That starts at 8 p.m. And then tomorrow our coffee networking begins at 8:30, And the breakfast plenary, the impact and lessons of MPOX, begins at 9:30 sharp. So hope to see you there. We'll see you at the opening reception, and have a great night.
Cause you're a sky full of stars. I'm gonna give you my heart. Cause you're a sky full of stars. Cause you lie.